I'm back, and I'd like to show you how I got from here, a basic block stacking game, to here, which is the beginnings of a vertical type SimCity game, in a little over a week. I'll show you some of the math that I skimmed over in the last video, and I'll also explain a huge problem that I had and how its solution can help you in your games. So let me explain how the tower works. It's made up of a bunch of objects, and only the top 4 are drawn on screen to increase performance. As you can see, they appear to be rotating, but they're actually not. Pico 8, the engine I'm using, has no built-in way to rotate sprites, and instead of copy-pasting complicated functions other people have made, I decided to make my own solution. Since each floor doesn't need to actually rotate that much, I used the cheap trick. Instead of rotating a floor, I broke it into many vertical columns, each a pixel wide. By changing the Y position of each individual column, I could simulate the floor tilting. But the question is, how do we know where to put all the columns at what time? Well, we use a parabola, and trust me, I'm just as surprised that I thought of it as you are. I'm not a nerd, I swear. Parabolas curve either up or down on either side, with a minimum or maximum in the middle. Also, if you plug in an X value, you'll get a corresponding Y value on the parabola. So I thought, what if we placed all the columns along the bottom of the parabola, setting their Y position according to their X position? Remove the line, and it looks pretty convincing. I'm totally surprised that math class has paid off, and it's amazing. But how do we get the floors to move? Well, that's pretty simple. We set the floor's movement to a sine wave, the same waves used in things like demo scene text. When we change the amplitude of the wave, the tower becomes more wobbly, and to finish the effect, we make the bottom floors less wobbly than the top. I hope this helps explain some things about what I was doing in the last video, and let me know if you want my videos to be more math focused in the future. At the end of the last video, I had a basic block stacking game. I knew I wanted to make a city building type game, so I got to work laying out the types of buildings I was going to need, like houses, shops, and factories of different sizes. I then tested them and made sure that even the taller buildings were working. I added icons so you could select any of the buildings in the game and place them if there was demand for it, and here's where the problem started. See, I had no idea where the fun of the game would come from. So I thought that the player would just have fun building and managing their money, and there would be demand for certain types of buildings. Like for example, these fictional computer characters in the game would want one building more than another building, and you'd have to, understand their demand and choose accordingly. But first, an idea like this was way too complicated for a small game like this, where someone would probably play it for only like 5 minutes. And second, managing demand for each building was such a challenge. Like, I thought it would make sense to make a bar next to each building, and it would go up and down. But how would it go up and down? Would it go up at a steady rate, or would it be based off of the previous floor that was placed? And would there be more demand after a more populous floor is placed? And what happens when the player can't keep up with the demand? Or what if the balance of demand between the buildings is lost once the demand is stuck at the maximum value? It's so confusing. I never thought I'd have conservation of demand written on my Trello board, but here we are. I was having a lot of trouble. I really wanted to have the ability to choose whatever building you wanted, but it just wasn't working out. So I took a break and watched the YouTuber Lazy Devs, one who I watch once in a while. He makes game design related videos with great practical and realistic tips. He had posted a video recently where he got you to take this thing called the 30 circle challenge. So basically you're supposed to fill in as many of the 30 circles as you can in a minute with unique items, drawings, anything. To most people this seems impossible to fill in the circles until you realize you don't have to draw things in the circles. You can put anything in there, from letters, numbers, dots, anything to get you to those 30 circles within the minute. The reason the test was relevant and important to game design is because when making games you have to realize what you're capable of, what you have the time to do, and the scope of the game you're working on, and so you can act accordingly. And it also shows there's always a way to cheat the system and to do something faster if you think outside of the box. Or, well, the circles. Then, 5 minutes after watching, I got an idea that would completely change how I wanted the game to work. I thought, what if you couldn't choose exactly what building you wanted? What if you could only pick from some of the buildings at any given time? So, I got to work, and soon after, the unexpected idea became the best building demand solution that I had had. And so here we are. As you can see, I made the buildings look kind of spooky. I think that's a pretty cool theme. I want to do something with it in future devlogs, but the art isn't even close to done. You can click on the buildings on the top right to place them, and you can only place the buildings that are visible in the list. The order in which you place the buildings determines the size. So for example, houses like to be near shops. So if you place a shop first, and then a house on top of that, the house will be larger. Also, the accuracy in which you land them determines the wealth of the people moving in. So if you land it perfectly in the middle, you'll get a bunch of rich people moving in. If you right-click on any building, you'll see what you need to get to its biggest size. So that could be being near an education building, or being right next to a shop, or something like that. The visual effect where all the buildings are rotating is not working. It doesn't look right. There's something weird with the layering issue that I still have to figure out. And also the people that are moving in just kind of look like weird blobs. They're not looking right either. That's because the art is not done, but I hope to do that in the next devlog, as well as designing the backgrounds, balancing out the game through playtesting, or putting in things like a tutorial, or scores, or music, or things like that. I still have to do all of that, and that will hopefully be in future devlogs if I make them. So, thanks for watching once again, and I hope to see you all in a couple weeks.